This is episode 23 of the Slide In podcast. I'm Braeden Anderson. This is Kelly Gallup. Kelly, what's the show brought to them by today?
I don't know. Is this a trick question?
Yeah, kind of.
It's brought to you by Cortland Kit Rods, because I fished them the other day and loved it.
Yeah.
I don't even know what it's guide. It's called the guide.
It's called the guide, yeah. No,
I love that.
It was $190. Something.
Rod reel line, yeah. It's another one of those kit things. I used to do the Traverse a lot. And then Cortland sent me that rod, and it's a 6-weight. I think they have a 5 and a 6. I don't know.
Do we even sell those?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I really liked it. It was, I don't know, back to that. You know, when I talk about we did that $1,000 rod thing, I hear about it constantly everywhere I go. I wasn't saying that they weren't good rods. They do make great rods. I was simply saying, I mean, there's some new rods out right now that are pretty high dollar that I really like. So it's not that they're not there.
Yeah.
Just I really like that.
I haven't thrown that R8 Classic yet, but I've wiggled it. And
that's
in my hand. I like it a lot better than the R8 itself. But
I didn't care for that rod at all.
All right, I don't think these kit rods are online yet, so we'll make sure they are by the time this goes out. But
no, they're not. We just had the demo. I had them ordered.
Oh, okay.
They're coming here.
All right.
I thought you meant we don't have any stock in here yet.
All right. Well, then buy something.
By the time they see this.
Thanks, guys. It helps us do this.
Yes.
All right. Well, today we're going to do some segments kind of near the end of the show. I think everybody's been enjoying the What's Kelly Pissed Off About segment. So you've got about an hour to figure out what you want to talk about. We'll do that a little later. I want to start with some questions like we always do. So this one comes from Orlando3ish on YouTube. Hey guys, just had a question for the podcast. I know you guys are out west in the mecca of trout fishing, but how about giving some love to the green trouts? SMB. Smallmouth bass. Maybe Kelly could talk about the similarities and different methods of fishing for them on the fly. Lastly, I've heard Kelly mention the Great Lakes often. He mentioned about seeing people catch steelhead on dry flies in Lake Michigan, being someone who's
No, I was one of them.
One.
Yes.
Being someone who is smack dab in the middle of Chicago, I have massive lakefront available to me, but casting is an issue because of what's behind me, concrete and people mainly.
Don't mind those people. They'll get out of there.
With limited backcast space, what would you suggest to be able to get the line out there? A switch rod, maybe a rod with surf casting setup. Any help would be amazing. Appreciate all you guys do. Thanks. So kind of two-parter there. Talk a little bit about smallmouth and then lake fishing on Lake Michigan.
Well, with the smallies, once again, my fly shop, if you watch bass shows, you will see that for a good period of time, Shaw Grigsby, Hank Parker, Dance a little bit, Zona, just watched him last week, Van Dam, of course, who's from there. But my fly shop was in front of this run where Shaw Grigsby was shooting 50% of his shows for years. So was Hank Parker. I think he moved up there, I'm not sure. And they were all sitting on what they call it. That Zona did a show. It was his best. He had his 2 biggest fish ever, which were nice ones. Nothing that spectacular. But I grew up on that dredge. It's where they suck the sand out of the lake to build the roads. And they had some guy's name on it. And he says he was here 30 years ago. Well, I was here 50 years ago, and I don't remember this guy ever being out there in my life. I never saw Scotty Vanderplug and I. Period. We never saw anybody. But it was the greatest, like I said, Zona, he just said this was the best show in their history. It's right in this spot. But I refer to smallmouth a lot. There's 2 different, but that's where I started my diving, is where they were fishing. You know, that's all that East Bay. And I was tracking smallmouth. That's, back in the day. But I was really preferring more to river smallmouth. And I personally believe a river smallmouth, they fight so hard. They are so superior. They are brown trout without spots. That's all they are. Their similarity, they're almost identical.
Are they identical in the way they feed
the way they attack, the way they react.
But different in the way they fight, right?
Yeah, they're just way
Yeah, they just pull way
2 pound
harder.
smallmouth, take a 5 pound brown trout, drag it backwards and drown it. I mean, it's just like, they are so badass. They're just built to fight, right? And so, and we did a lot of it back there, but you could lose your way in a hurry from trout to smallmouth really quickly because they're very topwater oriented, very ambushy, have a lot of similar, almost identical really to a brown trout, just a little bit more aggressive. And if you're in Chicago, just for him, right?
Yeah. Orlando, probably.
I don't know, but regardless, there's a shop in Michigan, Schultz Outfitters, who has probably done more for the smallmouth fisheries than anybody. I mean, Mike's got a great staff. If you ever want to do it, especially if you're in Chicago, you're just 4 hours across or something to get there. And he's mostly on the Huron, but he's pioneered that. He's just really done a spectacular job. But as far as and the thing I like about the smallmouth fishing is it's so target oriented, right? There's a lot more targeting than there is just sweeping like we might do on rivers. And so a lot of my crayfish, everything that I did studying crayfish, a lot of it happened in Lake Michigan for the smallmouth, watching the smallmouth, watching them before live scopes, and not live scopes, but before whatever those things that
Fish
go underwater.
finders.
No. The like underwater cameras, like where now you can get some spectacular footage of underwater stuff, right? And I was watching one, I think it was on In Fisherman. Al Linder is one of my personal. Al Linder to me is right up there in that Joe Brooks world. I mean, maybe dead on even money because he just didn't fly fish, right? And so, and that's what I gravitated to. But I love gear fishing too. But they were showing smallmouth how they would go up and take a crayfish, and they're talking about soft shell them when their carcass gets soft and they can actually eat them. And they would actually suck these things in and let them go. But they said they also can smell them and know if they're soft shelling or not. And I would just swim around out in Lake Michigan with my mask and I always carried a spinning rod with a jointed Rapala. And then I would get down and I'd watch these fish, and then I would go back and I would cast to them and just see what I could make them do, right? And sit underwater reeling. It's kind of cool. You can only do it in like 5 foot of water or so, but you can just sit there and you watch them coming along. And it's like, you can't set the hook because there's some water against the rod. But it was a blast. But smallmouth have so many tendencies that are identical, and including when I would dive, in particular the Au Sable at the very lower end where there's a lot of smallmouth, a little bit below Redbridge in there for the smallmouth too, but I only did that once. Did the lower a lot on the Au Sable. But they're almost identical creatures. But that target, and because they're topwater oriented, a lot, you get to pick a target and your accuracy becomes really good. But like with anything, if you're a smallmouth person, especially if you're breaking into it, and I just can't overemphasize how great Schultz's outfit is. Those guys, if you can get to somebody like that, there's a lot of them. You get down the Carolinas, or you get down on the Jackson, some of that stuff down there in the what was that river we were on? The New, I think. The just incredible smallmouth fisheries. Hire a guide, because I am so past tense. I haven't smallmouth fished in 20 years. Well, if you go back and look at BSS 20 years ago and look at it today, life's changed a lot.
Different. Yeah, a little different.
It's a lot. And so I would say and Mike's my best resource. Contact him. I mean, these guys will share any information with you. And so that's what I would do if it was me. And I do that. If the best anglers I know, the single best angler, I've talked about Dave Ellis 1,000 times. Dave Ellis would go and he would hire the best guide in the best river. When he wanted to learn something, he went to the best guy. And 2 days later, he was the second best guy. The guy, that is.
Yeah.
It was just like, that's how you get good. Surround yourself with good people. Surround yourself with people that are winners. Don't find these dipshits that are drunks, and go find Mike Schultz, a guy like that. If you're going to be in the smallmouth world, call him. Russ is really good. Alex is incredible. Lufkus. I mean, but they're all Schultz guys. They're all hung out together. They're a little core. And I'm sure if you got anywhere up north, I remember when I used to shoot shows with, in Hayward, we would always do with the Mans, we would always do a few smallmouth days, but that's when I did a lot of it. So I wasn't so much trying to figure, and by the way, my favorite smallmouth fly is a tits up. And it was made for smallmouth.
On our website, that's tips up.
It is?
Yeah.
Why?
That might have been the company rejected the name Tits Up.
That's what it's called.
Yeah, it's named after the bird, right?
Over what?
After the bird, the blue-billed tit.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
In tan.
In tan.
In tan. And especially in tannic water.
So will you describe for people that don't know, what is the Tits Up and why?
Tits Up is it was actually not designed for smallmouth originally. The original one was done for Pyramid Lake. So you could drag it, and it has two popper heads in the hind end. And the idea was that I was trying to make a fly that no matter what, if you just fell asleep at the wheel, the hind end would do this. And and as soon as you put any pressure on it, so the fly, if you just throw it out, it'll go, if you're pulling it, it'll be static in line. And if you slow down, it's got two floating popper tails, so the ass goes up.
Yeah, so it gets vertical for those who are watching.
Not quite vertical, yeah. And
even approaching, right.
And the original one, I don't think I have it here, but the original one, I saw one here the other day, had a skull, the original skull before flying fishermen knocked him off. It was Roman Mausers, and his were better than theirs were anyway. The original, they were flatter, and you could actually, when mine was it was one of the few times I ever tied on shanks, and it was basic. This is a Roman Mauser head, you'll never see it. But this fly is an offshoot of that. It's a bent hook, and it's busted, the hook is, but I would drag that. I was on a shank, and then I had the hook back here with the popper tails and this, and then the rubber legs out the side like that does. So if this was a shank, it was back here, and these are two popper tails. And when you slow it down, it would go up like this, and it would do that. And I was fishing with Larry Mann at Hayward Fly Shop, and we were going to do a thing, and he's a smallmouth guy, and he didn't know that I smallmouth fished, and he goes, "Oh, I want you to use this fly." I said, "I kind of have my own." Oh, no, we're arguing, and we're rowing across the river, and I get two smallmouth. And I'm dragging my line. I'd pump it like this, and then when that tail would go up, just chow that thing, just crush it, right? So, but it's, in particular, the tan one, and because I did tend to fish a lot of stained water with them. And I did it like I do all my flies in 5 colors, but the tan one for me was always money. And then we adapted it here. We started woolheading them. That's what Johnny got his biggest brown on ever, up between the lakes. And but it's the same thing. It's just you're moving it, moving it. When you stop, it does. They're just not used to something that will do that Medusa head thing, where it comes up like, how do you like this, right? And you slow down, and the weird thing is it works really good upstream. I never thought that would be, but it must over accentuate when it comes up. You're pulling on it and pulling at it, because we do a lot of straight upstream, even in the faster, especially pre-spawn fish, when they stage up in that super heavy water, and we throw those up, and you're retrieving it, and if you slow it down, that thing does this thing, and it gets that funky little, they eat the living shit out of it. And that's when in black and olive we do for trout. But the tan one, money smallmouth. So, and it's also one that you could run. There's a lot of flies you could Carolina ring. Like if I were you, where you're sitting, done with the smallmouth, you'd Schultz enough of a plug. Fly fishing the shores is a little difficult. right? I mean, Russ and I used to do that. I did it for years. Did a lot of marina fishing. They don't like you to do it like they used to let you do that stuff. I don't know if they do anymore, but I used to do a lot of marina fishing. And when they would, in particular, early fall and for sure spring, Russ did a lot more of it later than I did, where Russ Madden, we'd walk the beaches. And that's really money. It's kind of a nice out thing, right? And you'd walk the beaches and find these cruisers, and you'll see schools. I mean, you'll see schools of, you talk about wanting to, you want a challenge. You watch a school of 15 brown trout or Chinook salmon come in on the Great Lakes, not a fish under 10 pounds in the group, and they're so chrome you can't see them. You want to see something tough to see? People talk about bonefish. What a joke. Go out and try to see a 20-pound Chinook coming at you in the surf with dead calm. I don't care. They are as invisible. That reflection, they're taking that color, that sand. It's like, wow, are they tough? And so, but you go out and you see it. But it's really, really, you better be really prepared to just zip a lot. I mean, Russ, I didn't do it so much. Russ did it. He was over out in Lake Michigan proper more. I did it on East Bay by, actually did a lot of it on Yuba Creek, up just this side of Yuba and Acme Creek, walking it. But it's tough. It truly is tough to do. And where you're at, there's no place they'll let you on the docks anymore. We used to just walk on the marinas and we'd fish off the piers. And never, this is for the, we were talking about two different things. I was kind of ending that thing on smallmouth and then going into the walking the shorelines. If you can get away from Chicago, just get to the shoreline off of the concrete, that would be great. And just walk. And I'll tell you one secret that we figured out a long time ago is that with this, what I was going to suggest is you get a little Clio or a crocodile and throw a spinning rod off the
exactly.
money. I love it. I grew up doing that. I did that. I bet I had 10,000 little Clios in Lake Michigan, and I absolutely loved just casting for them. And I'll tell you what else I did. A lot of just dropping a spawn bag out on a drop rig and just standing there. I thought it was fun to stand. I got 10,000 hours standing that lake either on the shore with my rod in a rod holder or just standing out in that water like this under here waiting. I absolutely could watch 1,000 sunups that way. It's the greatest thing ever, but it's not going to go over in the fly world so much. Maybe you could do a Euro nymph or something, I don't know. But the one thing that you figure out is you'll have these schools coming in. In the spring, you'll find a lot of steelhead that are mock spawning in the surf. It's really weird. People they don't all make it to the river. And you'll see them, the waves are pushing up, and you'll see them just sitting there like this. And I never threw to one in my life. I mean, I just thought it was disgusting. They're in there. First of all, they're kind of like not all there because they're trying to spawn on sand, but I just wouldn't do it. I wouldn't. There's something wrong with this kid. Probably should have and then took him out of the gene pool. Should have knocked him in the head, right? But there would always be these, and I don't know, hell, maybe there was a spring or something coming out. I mean, you didn't see a lot of them, but the one thing you have to understand is you have to be escaping that. If you throw across if the fish are coming at you, so if you're looking down the beach and they're coming at you, you have to be somewhere over here where you can pull away from those fish. If a fly comes at them this way or at their head, the fly could be that long, which a lot of mine were. I don't know what Russ fished. I only did that a few times with Russ. I don't remember what he fished, but mine were pretty thin profile minnow stuff. Take a minnow that big and come across their path, you blow that thing out so fast, just blow your mind. Fish are this big, and they'll eat anything. They can eat anything out there.
Right.
And you'd scare them. You have to run away from them. You had to run away from those fish.
And
the same on the piers. I would see them coming, because I used to do a lot of night fishing. Because I used to have lights on the piers, right? You want to talk about mayhem. The brown trout come in at night in schools of 50 to 100. Jeez. And you're talking 10, 20-pound brown trout. And you can spook those son of bitches by pulling a fly at them, right? You had to race away from them, and you get one to break out of the pack. It was crazy.
Is that what Andy was talking about with the shy eye?
With the what?
With the shy eye for tarpon.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah.
So it's not crossing their path.
Can't. Yeah. You have to take it. It cannot cross
So
their
throw it
path,
on
and it can't go
your
out.
side of the fish and rip it away from them.
Correct. He
Interesting.
can't see it go across his
Yeah.
path. And it's the same thing. We were talking, Andy and I were talking
Yeah,
about this exact thing. You're talking about Andy Mill,
Yeah.
the greatest tarpon angler ever. And so he talked about the key is to get the shy eye. You can't come to this, your fly can't, if fish is here, this is his eye. There's one over here if you didn't know. They have two. Okay, this is a great one. Shark. It comes the fly, no way, not going to eat it. Same thing with the trout or the salmon. If that fly comes across them, no bueno. You'll blow them out. They'll just blow the whole school, by the way. And if you can get those, and you got to be careful sometimes with those coaster fish. They'll have, not like a carp does. Carp do it all the time. They have sentries. Carp have the highest pheromone there is, and they have sentry guards. And if you spook them, the whole place goes off. And it's kind of like that with a salmon or a steelhead or a brown trout. I don't think so much. The salmon seemed a little bit more, but I think it's more the fly coming at them. But if the flea of the minnow goes like that and runs away from him, it's one thing. What Andy was talking about is if your fly comes into his dominant eye here and it's coming at him, 100-pound fish will get put off by a fly that long. You try to drop it on its shy eye, is what he called it. So the one on this side, so he sees it going away. And that was his guarantee.
So I wonder if that would play into, have you thought about that at all with like river trout? Do you think they abide by the same rules?
He asked me that too. No, I don't. It's possible, for sure, on a dry fly. It's called lining.
Right.
So, and that's why you read the fish's head, which way it's going, this or this, but not really, because I don't know. We had a lot of talk about it, Andy and I and Nikki. We talked about it for probably 20 minutes. There's probably some validity. I've seen too many fish just turn, like you hit a fish here, you hit the bank, and that it's coming across, and I've seen just too many fish turn on either direction and take it anyway.
Yeah, or hit it going upstream, which means it has to cross them. Or I think when you bring in the idea of a reaction bite, that may not.
But I do think there's some validity to. There's probably some thought there that like Alex was talking with Chad in a podcast. We have to find out what Chad's podcast is, because I've brought it up a lot. We need to find out what it is. It's probably not the name of it.
It's Chad Johnson, right?
Yeah, it's probably not the name
if
of
I
it.
search that, I'm just
Chad's Big Johnson. I think
we're going to be swimming in a sea of the NFL, the Ocho Cinco.
Yeah, but at any rate, I think there's room there for thought, because Alex in particular was talking about how you don't have to, people, they just hit every inch of every water. And after a while, you realize where the fish are going to eat.
Is it the Real Southern Podcast? I think so.
It might be. I listened to it. I just never thought about
plugging them.
No, I wanted to plug it because I thought it was a great.
I think it's the Real Southern Podcast. CJ's Real Southern Podcast.
That sounds right. Yeah. CJ's, not Chad Johnson.
Yeah, because Chad Johnson puts you in the algorithm with Ocho Cinco.
And he's some football guy, right?
Yeah.
He's a good guy or bad guy? So you got
I don't know. No, I think he's a good guy. He's just.
He wasn't like you're not gonna, like it was a news thing where he's.
No, I don't think so. No, okay. I don't know enough about it, but he was a pretty outspoken player. Yeah.
Well, it just. Yeah, but watch it. Chad's been. I refer to three guys frequently. More Alex and I know Chad pretty well, but not like I know Alex and I know Russ. Obviously, Russ is like an offspring of mine almost, and so But those two guys, I think, when it comes to trout knowledge, is I don't think that when you take Alex and Russ for sure, I don't think there's a higher level, right? They're as good as it gets in the world. And the irony is whenever they're fishing with somebody, those are the other, it's like Schultze and guys like that, they're also on that level. And so listening to those guys, in particular when Alex was talking about these fish, not so much dominant eye, but fish are going to be in a particular type of water. And after 20 years of reading water, that's like when we fish the river and suddenly not casting. Well, you know, there's always the village idiot, right? That you might be sitting somewhere, might have got displaced some reason. But in reality, it's a guide situation. If you're hunting trophies, it's like I've been talking about live scope a lot. That's forward imagery on bass boats, and how the new guys, you know, 3 weeks, I forgot the kid's name that won it. The guy said that he'll never win a major by not power fishing. And then the kid breaks every record there is, right? And he's 21, whatever, 23 is the other one. Can't remember the two. And then 3 weeks later at the elite, half the people in the field are not fishing. They don't fish. They don't cast to stuff they don't see. And I mean on their live scope. Because the possibility of something, getting a small fish and putting the big fish off and you miss it. And so I'm watching the elite and I'm like, shit, it looks like a third of them are just staring at they're not casting at all. And it was one of those things. And that was kind of, without that visual, Alex was talking about how, you know where your really dominant fish sit. And the player's going to be in this water. Mm-hmm. And so throwing it every inch and getting an 18-inch fish right before you would have got, which I talk about a lot in our videos about reading your water and peripheral vision downstream. And and he's talking about a river, he's talking about the White, where they both have guided it for, 15, 20 years, whatever it's been, a lot. And they're targeting one fish a day. They want one because they're all trophy hunting with the customer that wants one fish, right? And so you have to sacrifice the piss ant to get to the real one. Mm-hmm. Because if you're fighting that piss ant 20-inch fish and you're looking for a 10, 15-pound fish and you float by it, and you'll have the day where every fish in the ditch eats, but most days you're going to get 4, 5 shots if you're a superstar, right? And so I always bitch about when we're floating, read your water ahead of time. You're going to get, knowing that you got 11 seconds. Like in our seminars, in our school, I break it down per how many, if you're doing 2 knots, how many feet your boat travels a second, right? And if you miss the one zone that you're supposed to be in, well, that might be your day.
Might be your shot.
That's your day.
That's what I noticed yesterday when, watching you throw dry flies and having Johnny row you. That's a lot of experience in that boat. And the number of times where I'm looking at a bank and I'm seeing microhabitats where I think fish can be, and you're going too fast, the whole thing. Because there's a spot where a fish could be, but because the whole rest of the bank's unhospitable, we're coming out of winter, there just aren't going to be fish there, right?
Yeah.
That was kind of one of my takeaways, and Johnny and you kind of had the same read on a lot of water yesterday.
We pretty much read identical water, and as do Russ and I.
Yeah.
Russ and I fished a lot together, and I haven't fished with Alex that much. I fished him a couple times, but pretty much the same. But Alex is so that he just won't cast.
I noticed you doing a little bit of that yesterday, where you're like that bank, no good. You just grab your fly and hold it until we get to a spot where you fly.
I come from a generation, unlike yesterday's foam world, where we could drag it. But if you grew up fishing real flies, which are fur and feather, you don't need them saturating in the water.
Right.
They don't float very well. I don't give a shit what you put on them. You just can't drag them around. But so much of reading water is, I have an advantage in that I'd spent so much time underwater looking at fish. And I didn't just look at giant fish, right? Looking for them But that was pretty rare to find one too. But I got to go, like I did a lot of bank stuff and undercuts and big hangs and where the grass is hanging, but it's really the bank's way the hell back here. And what does the water do into the bank, right? Because trout anglers are so bank oriented. And so, and I've said this 100 times, almost all my giant fish have come dead center in the river. We row over most of but it's just there's no target there because you haven't spent the time to learn that middle river structures, where those mid-river flats and those soft depressions and stuff that are just there, and you row over those fish all day. And so we fish the banks because it's Targetville, hence back to the smallmouth thing. The smallmouth are so oriented to structure. And so rock piles, wood, and banks to some degree, but there's so much stuff. But a lot of it has to do, like if this is the bank, if my vise is the bank and the water hits it that way, no trout's going to sit in it. It's not going to allow itself to be pushed against the bank. And so much of that water, as you're watching it coming down, and what I call folding, kind of like cake, frosting, folding, frosting. If water pushes coming into it like that, there's no fish he will not be in there. It might look like the greatest bank on earth and throw a night crawler in there, nothing's coming. It's just, or you get one of these things, which is an even bigger kiss of death for your fly if you're fishing fur and feather because it goos it up and then you're screwed again, right? And so it's a lot about just the fold of the water, rather, is it doing this or is it doing this? And, don't waste with foam, you can plop that shit anywhere. I mean, it's such a dummy-proof material.
Back to our conversation with Johnny, right, about how salmon flies are fly fishing for dummies. Yeah. Foam's a lot easier to fish than...
Dude, I can't even imagine. I was telling Johnny, I forgot about this when we were doing that segment, the first sofa pillow I fished I thought was a streamer.
Yeah.
I did. Thing sunk, you got about 10 casts, and I fished it a streamer, and I caught fish on it. I was a kid, right? And they would float, but, they sunk a lot. All flies sunk a lot back. Well, plus the learning curve, you're not getting a good drift. You're a kid fishing, right? And they ate the hell out of that thing I thought I turned that so it didn't do all that noise. But that's here nor there. That was just, it's reading water. And so back to the surf thing, I think that's where we were going somewhere an hour ago. But those are the things I would tell you. And then I would remember that you have to find those fish. You have to be what you're asking is really hard. Now, I will tell you this, that when I start people casting, when I actually did casting lessons, I would tell them, because it sounded to me like you wanted to huck a fly way out there. It's not going to be that effective. And you're definitely going to get bystanders, which is okay. They should get out of your back cast zone. And you shouldn't have to tell them. But I would always start people and I would tell them get 10 to 15 feet from your car, not somebody else's, and have a target, 20 feet in front of you. Because ideally your line never will hit your car. And if it does, it's your car that's getting wrecked. So you'll have less tendency to wreck your car. And so that keeps your back cast in a nice plane that keeps it above the car, and you're in your yard, and you're target casting anyway, which you should. And then once you have that control, that distance thing will be much easier for you. But off where anywhere I know, if Johnny's from Chicago, and he grew up on the piers. He's always telling the story. When he was a kid, his mother called him. There was 2 or 3 of these old black ladies that hung out in the pier, and they watched Johnny, right? And he was always there, and they called him 1, 2, 3, and he went back as an adult. And we'll have to have him tell the story. It's hilarious because I can just somehow I just see these women are just sweet as pie, and they just love Johnny because he's so, Johnny, and he finally went back as an adult and he asked them why they called him 1, 2, 3. He says, because your mom shows up and she says, Johnny, and she kept saying Jack. And she finally goes, I'm going to count to 3. 1, 2, and at 3, Johnny turned and run. And he went back and meets these ladies later when he's not much older, he's late teens probably, but 1, 2, 3. Because he lived down there and he fished for anything, and he grew up like you're supposed to, fishing worms and lures and stuff like that. And so, not sure where that was going. But I hope we answered the question. I wouldn't put too much emphasis on trying to catch fish off the piers. Evenings and morning, really early, really good. Get a few more, and there are magnets. The piers are magnets for coasting fish, for fish that are looking. They come in because there's so many bait fish around them,
Right.
and so they do draw in a lot of fish. But boy, it's tough, And most of them aren't down far enough. It's really hard to fight a fish from one. You got to have a long net to get them. In the old days, they weren't like that as big. At least where I grew up, a lot of them were. You could almost reach a fish. But now they're much bigger walls and all that stuff. So, hope that helps. Maybe not.
So the advice is don't.
I wouldn't be out on those.
Maybe move out of Chicago.
Well, you can get to the shorelines, but
Yeah.
they're so built up. Housing's everywhere. People are rude.
Oh
You're
yeah,
just out there.
something I was going to mention, kind of what you're talking about. The guy Bronson who was just in here, we were talking about different casting styles and about how people kind of like develop these things, but they don't know they're doing them. Mm-hmm. So both a Belgian cast and then like a steeple cast. Mm-hmm. The steeple cast is kind of what you're talking about. When you've got stuff behind you, you learn the tip of your rod kind of follows a parabolic shape going up, right? Mm-hmm. So that fly, theoretically, you could almost stand with your back against the wall and still make a cast because your fly goes so vertical. I mean, it's not.
That's an accentuated,
very
steeple,
much so. Yeah, but
I'm not a low Belgium either, and it's kind of between the two.
Yeah, it's in between them. I call it a modified steeple. It's basically when you have shit in your back cast.
Yeah.
Keeping the fly high. Yes, exactly. Keeping the fly high and then being able to shoot line out, and having a 10, 12, 15 foot back cast and then still being able to get it to go 30. I think that's a great thing to practice. So
it's great to have something behind you if that's going to be your deal. If you're going to be it's absolutely worthless if you're a saltwater guy. Who cares? Yeah. Or if you live in Montana and you run drift boats, right. Who gives a shit what's behind you? Nothing. Right? Yeah. So I grew up in Michigan, and we'd teach. I'd say get close to that car and have a 20-foot target. Yep. Because that's all you're going to do the rest of your life. Like we talked about that kid up in northern Michigan a couple weeks ago. You got a lot of obstacles. Yep. And Johnny said it yesterday. We were fishing. We got through some woods. Oh, you guys from Michigan don't know how to get anything under woods. And that's all we do all day, every day. You had to have a low cast, and you have to have a really quick, you had to be able to go from here to here, because it'd be like trying to pack cast with this most of the place, but right. Shit everywhere.
Yeah, I remember trying to learn the underhand loop when I came out here to throw salmon flies up under bushes. Mm-hmm. I was getting pretty good at it, but a little too good in that, you throw that underhand loop, you kind of trace that with your rod tip, right? Almost a U shape. And that loop comes in upside down instead of fly over top, fly comes in underneath. Well, if you overpower that cast, what happens when you overpower a regular cast, right? Yeah, that fly launches into the water and all the line comes down over it. Mm-hmm. Well, the inverse of that is that fly kicks way up into whatever tree you're trying to get under. So I figured out pretty quick that wasn't very effective, although it was fun.
That's the whole game.
Yep.
It's fun. There's no
The skip shot's another fun one to try to learn. I don't think it's, once again, not really that effective, and you lose a lot.
Skipping's a big thing in the bass world.
Oh, big time.
And it was a big thing for Dave Whitlock was a bass guy, much more than a trout guy.
Well, I think those...
And he talked about skipping docks all the time.
Well, I think a lot of those lures skip a lot better than flies, right?
None of them skip unless you have a parallel to the water surface. You got to know how to do it. And if you can't do it,
oh,
you
yeah.
can't do it.
No, but you've got like a solid surface. It's almost more like,
Sometimes we got a lot of shit that can catch, too.
True.
You got bills, you got two hooks, you got lots of shit that can... You either can skip or you can't, and it's an art. I watched a show a while back about somebody learning to... It was Hank Parker, which holy shit. I mean, you don't get, he's one of the most award-winning anglers in history. And he had on, oh crap, it's one of my favorite anglers. Andy, big guy. He's always playing the dumb guy in the commercials. He's funny, just hilarious guy. And he says he's the best skipper I've ever seen. So I'm having, and Hank Parker's 70 something, right? I'm having Andy show me how to do this. And the first thing he said was, you can't skip with a too long a rod. It was really fascinating to me. He says, the tip trajectory has to be parallel to the water. You can't skip. He says, I'm 6'4". You can't use my rod. And Hank's probably, he might not be 6 foot tall, but now, but probably was. And he says, I built my rods in 2 lengths. I got a 7.9 and I got an 8.4. If you're under 6 foot, you can't use my rod. Almost like a challenge, right?
Yeah.
And he goes, you can try, but you're gonna round your tip up, and you're gonna miss the water.
I mean, it's the same reason
you
why
have to miss the water.
rock skippers get down low,
Yeah.
right? You're not throwing it overhand; it's angles.
And if you said and you're only talking about 6, I can't remember. Well, I think that was right, 7.9 and a 6.4. So, but he said that's why we built them, and it's the same thing for skipping. Or not necessarily skipping, or just getting a low. Physics are physics. You can't have something coming from this angle and change to go to this. It just doesn't happen without hitting something, right? Something has to deflect it. And so learning to skip underneath, I never worried about skipping, although after I watched Dave Whitlock do it on the docks, it was fun. I mean, I wanted to go try it, but I found no use for it because it's not how I present my flies, but I didn't fish dogs. But if I did, I would. I would have done it. But
yeah, I was practicing a little bit. I think it's with soft material flies. They're a little.
Well, as much frogging and shit as we do
nowadays,
and all the skid flies that were the topwater streamer stuff, Russ's scarping and shit like that. I could see it, but just here, it's just so irrelevant.
Yeah, it's probably unnecessary, but it's fun.
Our rivers. In Michigan, it would be important. Yeah. There's all kinds of shit to throw under it back there.
I mean, there's rivers I fish
anywhere in the Midwest
have, trees and bushes and stuff where you do want to skip one back under it. And like, there's places where you could use it. Madison may not be the best example.
Yeah, we kind of wash out. Our trees go away.
Yeah, they do. Also, I got this DM from Justin King. Said, new segment idea, review user-submitted casting videos. And me being a caster baiter, I think that'd be fun to do on a show. Kelly might not.
Or maybe you might do your own show.
Yeah, I kind of want to pick the worst ones and then make fun of them, which I think Nate watched the Muskie Fool thing because he texted me yesterday saying we should get Nate, Chuck, Hunter, Andrew, all the fellas to tie flies in front of you and you critique. And
well, I really dug that.
I don't want to completely rip them off, but I think that'd be fun.
I had the first Corona where we critiqued flies.
That's true. So all right, fair.
Maybe they ripped us.
No such thing as an original idea.
No, people.
I do think we're.
Although they've got such a clean style, I wouldn't try it because they're much funnier than I am. Now, I think there's 3 young guys that do it, and 2 of them in particular are freaking hilarious, and I'm not that funny, so I could make fun of it. But the casting thing, that's a lot of effort, and I wouldn't want to. I mean, that could be a whole segment.
Yeah, it might be something different.
I wouldn't mind breaking flies down, but that's kind of like when we did the kill the coronavirus thing,
Which a lot of people want us to bring that back.
It was a blast, but it was so much work. But man, 100 and some submissions a time, and a weekly thing. It was so much work, but I would love to do it, kind of like the guys at the Muskie Fools did. And one thing that doesn't piss me off this week is that, because I was listening to those kids. They're not kids. I don't know how old they're, 20-something, 30 maybe, I don't know, kids. But their critiquing was funny and fun. Yeah. But the entire time, and which I would love to do one like this in the trout world, But the entire time they're breaking the fly down and they're saying, well, I don't know if it's going to do this, And in particular, one of the guys runs glide baits a lot, things. And he says, it's no way, it's not going to. And he's going through it. And it's a critical eye, but it was with a sense of humor, but it was a sense of learning through the whole thing.
Right.
That doesn't piss me off about technology. That's when I start looking at this stuff, saying to myself, this is a great thing. And you've got really active anglers, not like the old days where a bunch of old guys sit around and say, oh, I don't know if that would work, Wilford. Well, you don't have a freaking clue because you don't fish more than 5 times. These guys fish every freaking day.
Yeah.
Right? And that's the difference. Now you got this, and I've always said that for 100 years, I've said fish with younger, and people always ask me, I don't fish with guys, man. I fish with young anglers because they're not stuck in that bullshit, in the quagmire of just history. Who cares? Tomorrow's going to be a new day. And these guys are breaking these flies down with pure intent. And they're talking swims because, in particular, lake flies, and one of the guys said something where, we do a lot of lake fishing, which is much harder than a river, which it is, because the river initiates your fly for you and it does it in one direction. You don't have a lot of control over what happens if the current's pushing it, right? You have a single directional pull,
right?
And you can stall flies and you can accelerate flies, but in the lake, you don't have anything, you have no advantages, right?
Right.
You have to do it all yourself. And so these guys are breaking these flies down. I thought that would be a really cool way to do the kill the coronavirus type thing. It would be a good way to bring it back for if you want to go like, well, we'll do functional flies, flies that are really, break them down, right? I don't know if I could be as much as Bam Bam, what a dick he was that day. It was hilarious. They were picking on him because he's like Johnny. He must be almost identical because he comes in and says he was like, everybody's giving me shit because I'm being too nice. So this fly fucking sucks, and this is the worst fly I've ever seen. And 30 seconds, he goes, I was just kidding. Just joking.
I'm joking.
I laughed all the way to work, which was a great day to listen to it because I've never had such a slow drive in my life. But anyway, back to the casting thing, breaking someone's cast down. It'd be great for you because you love it. And I'm functional casting. But yeah, you could do that, or we'll see. But I'd be more inclined to do it with the fly thing because that's almost more like a personal training thing for whoever you're breaking down. But we could do that too. That'd be fun. Yeah. We could break it down and send it to you, and maybe we could do a highlight thing about this is what Braeden found in this guy's cast. Yeah. Right? Or we get Bruce in it too. So you two can decide who's more geeky, you or Bruce.
I'd love to be able to roast people's casts, but I also have a problem being mean like that.
Well, we have to give you a new name because Bam Bam's taken, so you can't take the badass out of whatever his was. But that was hilarious.
All right.
That is a thing I like though about today's technology is that there's a lot of avenues out there, to hear people's. I've spoke 1,000 times about Larry Dahlberg, and if I could have had Larry Dahlberg do one of these 40 years ago or 30 years ago, his mindset was so different than the rest of the world. And that's the unique thing about all these podcasts. I mean, I just dug it when Alex and Chad were on there. And it's just because they're sharing the freaking world. They're sharing 30 years of their life with you.
Right.
That's when somebody starts talking their shit when they're saying, oh, I'm so better than you. You probably are. Who gives a fuck? Share it.
Yeah.
What are you doing to help anybody but yourself?
Make a podcast.
Get out of here. Go let go of the oil jug and get out of grandma's basement,
The oil jug.
Oil jug. Oil can.
All right, so here's a question from Fringe Lord. I think it's EL, Fringe Lord L. I just picked up the fly for the first time this year. The amount of river fishing information I've siphoned from this channel over the last couple of years has been incredible. Fishing for browns with gear now seems like I'm using a cheat code, especially the Rapala. As it relates to streamers alone, are there ever advantages fishing a streamer over a Rapala? Are there areas where a seasoned fly fisherman can convert a nice fish where an adequate gear man might not? If I'm not able to polish this craft to the point that I can lord my prowess over my gear fishing family, what's it all for? Thank you, guys. a great question. Well written. That may be the first one we have that doesn't have a grammatical error in it.
I was thinking that, man, does Johnny and him hang out?
Yeah, very
Guys
well written.
both English majors. Yeah, we have to take a break while Braeden explains some of the words he used.
Well, I had to look up the word siphon to figure out how to say it.
Really?
No.
Okay. I'm feeling pretty good about myself for a second. You had to shut it down. Thanks. No. Okay, what's next? That's not true. I fished with a guy named Bill Erdman. Bill's one of my best friends, and Bill and I have been hanging out for 20 years, doing all sorts of things we shouldn't. And Bill is one of the single best gear anglers I've ever seen in my life. And I grew up with some great ones. I mean, in particular, spinners fishermen back home in Michigan, Bedford and those guys, and Jim Bedford, but who wrote the book on spinner fishing, but one of them. And there's just very few opportunities where you could, it's mechanical advantage, man. It is truly mechanical advantage. But there's been times like when I'm with Bill where I can at least hold my own with him. And regardless of fishery, I would not have to, if it was feeding myself, I'm pretty good with gear, but there's pretty good, and then there's Bill Erdman and the rest of them, right? And it's like, the same nuances that you learn to do in a fly, subtle stalls, over-exaggerated acceleration things or twitches or jigs or whatever it is that you learn with a fly, have all come from gear fishing, right? Yeah. It all comes from that. And so, and there's body mass and wavelength and things that we have trouble producing with a fly. So, but there are times, I've done a couple shows with Bill where we fished gear versus, we did one in the back before people were at Lando. I mean, we used to fish up there and not see boats, all day. It's crazy. And that's not so long ago, like 15 years ago, 20 maybe. And it was pretty pure. It was, we could do things. And we had a day where we're getting our asses kicked, both of us. And then suddenly they got on the fly. And they did. And it doesn't happen very often. I mean, Bill's a fly.
So you're saying the fly out
Yeah, I
fished
outfished
gear
him for
that
an
day.
hour or so.
Yeah.
But then it turned on and we're not going to talk about the rest of it. But I mean, I've had days with Bill where, they're on the soft stuff a little bit better, and not many, but it's always going to be a mechanical disadvantage. I mean, just the ability to move, lures have things built in to move them. Your gear ratios are so different nowadays. They can do so much more. But you could get to a point where you could stand your own. But I forget how he put so eloquently the ending of it, where he was going to.
If I'm not able to polish this craft to the point that I can lord my prowess over my gear fishing
lord
family.
your prowess over. I wouldn't get too.
No.
I wouldn't get too ready for that one. It's just because I mean, truly, there are mechanical advantage, and there's a marginal, a high margin. Very few people get to Bill's point, where they can feel, being able to feel your lure and what it's doing that's such a learned skill, right? But you can get to the point where you can hang with the top 80 to the top 90% of anglers with gear. And for example, a MEP spinner, I bring it up a lot because everybody knows what a MEP spinner. A MEP spinner swam downstream is worthless. 95% of the people I see on my river here throw it across stream. It's nuking about 3,000 revolutions, and it gets below them. They never catch shit. You watch somebody that knows how to throw MEPs, they fish them upstream, and they know their blade rotation per foot. You aren't going to stand a shot. You are not going to be in the ballpark with that person. It's just not happening. They don't have fly line getting caught in the water. They got thinner line. Some of my reels are 42 to 1. I mean, I can burn something across that surface so fast you hardly see it, or I can roll at whatever speed I want. I can understand the throb of a 9-inch per foot rotation, and and that's going to create a certain wavelength. People, real stall baits and real glide baits and real, crank baits, and there's just so much mechanical advantage to the weight of the lure that we're just we're getting close. We get close with stuff.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's possible to ever, you'll have a day where you can, but then you're going to get a poster and hang it somewhere. And you can say, I kicked your ass, right? Yeah. And then get a crown and shit like that, right? But
get a belt.
Yeah, whatever. And just live it, because it's not going to happen often. But you will be, I mean, I've done several shows. I did one on Beaver Lake in Arkansas with Todd Fairclough, I forgot his last name. I'll think of it in a minute. No, I won't. It'll just totally go.
Text me tomorrow and you do.
But we did. I've talked about it before. When we were topwater bass, we were fishing bass, and as long as we were topwater and the top foot, I could stand with anybody.
Yeah.
As soon as we had to go underwater because they weren't going to play on top, I'm done. Right? Just they're down. They're down, and they're fishing where they belong, and so it's just part of the deal. So I would say, but I would never give up, because you better be a good fly designer, because if you're going to break into that zone, and you better not be thinking like a fly angler. Fly anglers just, as a whole, don't think reactionary or different. They think pulling the rope and dead drift and things like that. And it's just not. Very few fly anglers want to put the effort. Hence, when I was talking about the musky fool guys, how they're breaking those flies down, but everything they're talking about is gear.
Yeah.
They're breaking a fly down. Will it do what gear will do? And it's really hard to have a neutral buoyancy fly that will still kick and have that much wavelength going off of it. When I tap that thing, it goes whoosh, and throws a 20 wavelength out 100 feet or whatever it does. Right. I mean, the thing weighs the same thing, but they're getting there. And that was what fascinated me about listening to the boys talk about it, was that they were breaking down by element of the fly. The fly's going to kick here, but will it kick here? Well, those are people that are thinking. And that eventually will get them up close, but I don't think you'll ever be able to match an actual physical body bait of some sort.
Right. Yeah, I think this question was streamer specific. I think when you get outside the streamer world, then there's places where fly anglers have
I would go topwater.
A rising trout.
I'll go topwater with any gear guy. I mean, period, end of discussion.
I remember a couple of years ago.
I've never seen anybody hardly fishing top. Although I don't want to go fish big weed mats, because I'm not going to have the same building that. Well, I would if I could build a weedless fly that well. I'm sure we could, and then it would be pretty even. But yeah, it is what it is. Enjoy what you got.
Yeah. So
it is completely a streamer game. It's going to be a complete streamer game if you're going to go against gear, because they're not throwing floating flies.
Well, I remember.
I wouldn't want to go against somebody fishing a rubber worm.
Yeah.
or any one of the 1,000 soft plastics nowadays.
No, God, no. Yeah, okay. I think that sums it up well. Thank you, friends.
This was a fly that was designed to go against a gear guy, by the way. That was when I was trying to. I actually had a fish in this in Denver, I think it was, on the hog trough. I outfished the gear guy, and I had a fish. I've told you the story. I think it was this one, and I was jigging it, and holy shit, these fish were going crazy. It had like 5 eats, and nobody else had an eat. And then I had one coming across the top. I think it was a flatliner, and a brown came off the bottom. It's full of all kinds of shit. There's walleye, there's backs, I don't know if there's a pike in there, but this freaking brown trout air launched out of the fucking. He went out. He absolutely came to the top in front of 200 people. I think it was in Denver. And it was Jim Edwards had his the big roll-in tanks, right? And we'd stand up top and we would cast, and mostly the gear guys. And then I don't know, there's two of us that were doing it. And it was a fly guy, and I get up, and this trout air launched, come up and hit that thing. There's no hook in it. Air launched out, goes down. That thing hit, I'll bet you are 10 feet in the air. This trout goes out, air launches off, comes down, hits basically in the crowd, right?
Yeah.
Whap, down on concrete. This big old Bubba guy, he goes, I'll get him. Boom, and he grabs that thing, he's got it by the gills and the thing, and he hucks that thing up, and he lands it. Nothing but net. Boom, splash, and next day that thing was still swimming. Just blew my mind.
Pretty resilient buggers, aren't they?
But that was a topwater, I was jerkbaiting, and it was and he just air launched it. It was the craziest thing ever. But I wouldn't get used to that. Just luck of the draw.
Yeah, no, gear's pretty much always going to win. The day I fished with Bill, which is also the last day I got fired by Kelly. Kelly had to do a long drive to exchange boats for one that wasn't working, and 3 minutes into fishing with Bill, I cracked a 28 and sent Kelly a picture.
Yeah, that was nice.
Yeah, he was really pleased about
that.
that.
Just kept going.
That was my biggest fish, and I was like, Bill and his buddy were throwing gear out of the back of the boat, and I'm like, fucking gear thing. Flies are pretty cool. And I ended up catching one more fish, and Bill put a real hurting on him that day. And my flies went cold pretty quick. So
the day
just never pays to be cocky,
The day that, well, in particular, Billy, he's
good people.
It'd be like saying you're going to go out and out crank Kevin Van Dam.
Yeah.
Dr. Krankenstein. He's probably that because for a reason, and it's just like, you get to the top of your craft, that's the guy you're looking at.
I'd love to do a show with you and Bill. I think that'd be really fun.
Yeah, we've done a couple. Sooner or later we will. Maybe next 2 weeks when we go over way east.
Oh.
That was supposed to be next week or the week after. Depends on water flow. Then we'll get to see the real world.
We're all right. All right, so here's a question from David Polk on YouTube. He said, great podcast. I would like a podcast on how Kelly trains his staff. What does it take to work for him? It happened again. I had a waiter order lost in the mail for a while. I call the shop. Johnny gets on the phone and simply says, not to worry, we will do you right. But not only does he help me, he also talks to me about some streamer questions I had. The guy is just pure class. Another example of why I buy all my fishing equipment from Kelly. I really would like to see a podcast on the process of working for Kelly. It can't be luck that his staff is so professional and pleasant to talk to. Anyone who owns a small customer service-oriented business could learn as much about how they do, sorry, I can't read. Could learn as much about how to do it as throwing a streamer. Thanks for all your help, Johnny. So I think we talked about this a little bit in one of our
We did. We had
episodes.
the fireable offenses and things like that. And that's, well, first of all, you got Mongo, who's the general manager, Johnny. And Johnny is the most polite, genuine human being that's ever. We were just talking to Bronson. And I told him, and I've told people for 100, anybody that's ever asked, I use Johnny as my species indicator. If you do not like Johnny, I immediately have there's something defective in you. You might be a droid or some shit, because he has no evil, and he's a big son of a bitch, and he's a tough guy, but it doesn't matter.
He's delicate like a flower.
Well, I don't know if I get that. I mean, he just is good. He just doesn't care, and he won't tolerate, and I will tolerate nothing. But what does Parker call me? My spirit animal is a redheaded McGanzer, because I've always got a little attitude, and I got this little blonde mullet, or red mullet.
Yeah,
or some shit.
It was red hair, and they look pissed off all the time.
It's a McGanzer.
Yeah, he calls them Kelly ducks.
Yeah.
The red mullet, and he looks pissed off all the time.
Just always looks a little pissed. It's always a little pissed
like
off about something. But in reality, all that shit comes from the surface down. It starts with the top management. And Johnny, obviously I'm the top as the owner, but Johnny's general manager. And there's a zero tolerance. And not only that, once that's set up, when you realize that you're here in this shop, this isn't Russia. Nobody put you there. You asked to come someplace. And we take that really serious, that there's no such thing as a dumb question. And I don't give a shit how many times you've been asked. You aren't allowed to voice your opinion. It's just not part of the deal. I mean, you and Bronson were talking about how guys come in and say, what are they biting on? That might be an irritating question. If you responded that that's a dumb question, you'd just be gone.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't, I mean, I have no problem cutting anybody's throat. It's my name on that. It's Johnny's name eventually on that. And much more, it's your reputation as just being a good person. Mm-hmm. You know, and it's what you signed up for. We're here to help people. And it's just, once you see that cocky attitude in the fly shop or any shop, I don't give a shit where you go. I walk out of businesses constantly, you know, kiss my ass later. Yeah. I don't, and I just don't go back. It's very simple. You've got choices. You can just go wherever you want. And now you got the internet, the most soulless thing on the planet, right? So what's not soulless about the internet? Everybody that fills out an order has to put a thank you note in it. They don't get to say, thanks, Chris. Jesus, I've seen some of Chris's things are like War and Peace.
Yeah.
You know, he knows every customer.
Yeah.
He knows them all.
Chris is our shipping manager.
Tens of thousands of orders go out. And he's, oh, hey, Frank, I haven't heard from you for a year. Hope everything is good. I hope the dog got better. Like the dog got hit by a car or some shit.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
Like, wow, man. But the point of it is that it's just, even if you go to work, it's a lot more fun to be there if you're just having a fun time.
Yeah.
And if your fun is being a dick to somebody, there's other shops that want you, just not me.
Right.
I mean, it's just, the older I get, the easier it is to cut somebody's head off for me. There's a lot of people in the world. We don't need as many people. And they sure as shit aren't going to be in my store. And so, but a lot of it has to do with the culling process that Johnny's in charge of. Johnny is, the gentle giant, and he asks the right questions. And nobody just gets hired here. Nobody just walks in, can I have a job? Yeah, sure. That one guy did that one time. He made it, what did he make it, about 5 days? And he just drove away. But he was really good too. But I mean, he got hired.
Oh, yeah, I never met that guy.
Tim, I think his name was.
Yeah.
And he was just different but super nice. I mean, really helpful. Didn't know that much, but enough he could help anybody, but he would, and that's another thing. You don't get to be a big shot here. That's my job, right? It's like, you get to know what you know and you never get to lie to somebody. So how hard is that? So you don't know the answer. I'll hear you if I hear you. If I hear you say something,
stupid, yeah.
I can hear in this store with 30, 40, 50, 60 people, I'll hear you say something wrong. And I have no problem going in and saying, nah, that's not quite right. And if that embarrasses you or Kyler or Johnny, I don't give a shit who it is. I've done it to Johnny too, before he was Johnny. And because the job is to make sure everybody gets, when they leave this store, their ears might hurt from hearing me talking too much, but they'll know what they got to do, right? Yeah. And we're, to the best of our knowledge, to teach them.
Yeah.
And that's our whole job. And your day's a lot easier than if your attitude is, oh God, if I hear this one more time, you'll what?
Yeah.
Here, let me give you a hint. Why don't you just leave now? Because it's over. Because it's your job, right? And so,
no, I remember
Johnny's got a real knack for, like when you dipshits showed up, you and Matt, and then you guys sent your resume in, which is the stupidest thing I've ever seen in my life, but it was funny. But you guys were obviously here the year before, and you were fishing all night.
Yeah.
And that's the only reason I hired you.
Well, that was Matt Miles. Everybody thought I was Miles, so I kind of
really.
Yeah.
You piggybacked that?
No, I never said it. Everybody just thought it. I didn't correct them. Actually, I did, but people just kept thinking that. Yeah. Remember Miles, blonde guy?
No.
It's a great tire. Yeah.
Obviously, I thought it was you, so I don't.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
at any rate, I knew that you guys were dedicated, and you were out there, and you were full of whoever the other guy, Miles, questions that were relative.
Yeah, well, and
So
enthusiasm, right?
yeah,
Like
well, that's what you're
neither
out
Matt or I were the most knowledgeable guys, but we love it.
Well, and you were asking the right questions and trying to get there while you were begging food and coffee and shower. No, I was hoping,
Once again, this was Matt
hoping you
Miles.
guys would have begged to shower because you had some hygiene issues.
Matt and Miles.
Yes.
See, I stopped here.
They did like 24, like a week, 2 weeks.
I think it was a month.
Was it a month?
Yeah, they went nocturnal for a month.
Whoa, it was unreal.
So I remember my first time here, I was fishing in Montana with my dad and brother, and I knew who you were and heard of the slide in, but I didn't put two and two together of where it was. And we finished fishing between the lakes, drove down this way to go through Ennis, and we just saw a sign that said cold beer. My dad's like, oh, brakes. Let's go in there. I walked in, I'm like, oh, shit, this is where we are.
Cold beer, hot flies, great stories.
Long stories. Yeah, so I'll throw a screenshot or two of Matt and I's application here. I think this is for folks who want to get hired really anywhere. Matt and I saw that the slide posted that they were hiring people, and we were both, big fans of Kelly. We watched his YouTube videos for years, and I was working, Matt was in college. And we're like, all right, dude, we got to throw an application in at least just to see. And Matt made me promise that if we got the job, we'd do it. And my thinking is we're far from well qualified for this position. We've got a grand spanking 0 days in the industry between the two of us. So we wanted to stand out a little bit. So we made like a 7 or 8 slide PowerPoint, and I'd spend a little bit of time in the shop. Matt knew you guys a lot better than I did. And he's like, well, they're, Johnny, Chris, Jeremy, Kelly, they're jokesters. Like, they like having fun. So why don't we build some humor into this slideshow?
It was funny.
So there's a couple surprises in there. I'll throw a couple of them up. But essentially, the word of advice for, younger kid that's trying to go to get a job anywhere is do something different. Like, we get a lot of resumes.
You're gonna get talked to no matter what. Johnny's and I are gonna set you down no matter what.
Yeah.
You'll know if you have the social skills. That's all it comes down to, because in a lot of ways we want you to know very little, because we want you to tell people what we want you to tell people.
Well, shit, Matt and I didn't know that we had. I don't know if this is what you're getting at. We didn't know that there was 2 beds in the trailer that we were going to be in all summer.
No, that I could care less.
I drove out here thinking I was going to sleep in my car.
They get housing, but their trailers. Johnny lived in a pup tent first year. And I mean, he doesn't fit in a pup tent. His feet hung out, right? He was too big for the tent. But Johnny's always wanted to do this, his life. He always wanted to be a guide. And he has no tolerance for people that have high expectations, like they should be coddled.
Right.
Wrong generation. That's your generation coddles people. I don't care. Matter of fact, I like to do just the opposite. And it, as you saw, it's good for you. It makes you
growth.
a good person. And nobody's asked to do anything that everybody. First year you clean toilets in the shop and you clean
Even on your day off.
You do whatever. I don't care what it is. There's no such thing.
I don't know if I told
You're living for free, a piece of shit. Go do something.
I don't know if I told the story on the podcast or not. I may have, but one day it was my off day and shop was busy as hell. Jeremy's in here dealing with like 19 people at once. And I walk in to grab a couple flies before I'm going fishing. And some European dude walks out of the bathroom and he goes, I am sorry, toilet is flooding. And just walks out the front door. I'm like, oh, fuck. And I go to Jeremy, I go, hey, that guy just said he clogged the toilet and it's overflowing. And Jeremy looks at me and goes, so? Deal with it. I'm like, oh man, all right, fine.
Deal with it.
Yeah, got a quick mop
Kung
job.
Fu said, there's honor in all jobs.
For sure.
Just do it. Somebody's got to do it.
Somebody's going to do it.
So you find out here real quickly that you do it.
Yes.
You know who shouldn't do it? Me. Who's next? Johnny. Who does it more than anybody? Me.
Right.
And
Kelly's fixed a lot of toilets in his day.
And I've cleaned a lot of shit off my floor and whatever else. And somebody's got to do it. That's what I don't get now. I mean, it's everybody, oh, I'm not doing that. Good, you're not living here either. Bye.
No.
You know, it's not like we don't, everyone's done it. And I did it. I mean, I was here alone my first 3 years, essentially. And if you can count Johnny being here, then, whoa, he was a wreck. God, he was a pig. Filthiest thing I ever saw. Much better now, though.
Yeah.
That's from Caddyshack. How does he say? Oh, Johnny will kill us if we do this. So were you in the war? Nope.
Nope.
Homo.
Homo.
Much better now, though.
Yeah. Let me go back to my place.
Johnny can do, like Ty. But yeah, the biggest thing here is, here's a thing that probably would surprise people. One of the rules of being employed here, in particular the first 2 years, you have to fish 4 days a week minimum.
Yeah.
And that's not something we take lightly. There's no, you will fish after you, and if you don't, we just don't have you. And it's end of discussion.
Yeah.
And it's one of the most unique workforces I've ever seen, as far as I know. But our staff will go, how many? 5 nights a week, you think? Where everybody does the flotilla thing?
Probably.
There'll be 2/3, if not all the staff, will be floating after the shop closes down the river together.
It's not unheard of to have 4 or 5 boats together. Going
Everybody's going down. It's part of the rules, because we assume that you know something when you get here.
Yeah.
But you may not know this river, and you may not know the idiosyncrasies that certain guides do, or these guys. And not only that, the guides go fish. I mean, a lot of times that's 3-4 guides, which is unheard of for a guide to go fish after a day of guiding, right? And so, and obviously it's not just like hardcore always, sometimes, but you know, it's a party boat down sometimes, and everybody's having fun, but they all come in the next day with a little bit more knowledge, and they can say, well, last night, and that's what I'm looking for. Or the number of, like you guys, early risers, go out to fish before they go to work. Well, how was it? Well, 2 hours ago it was doing this. What?
They were eating
You were
right.
out? Yeah, I was out for 2 hours. And, you know, and that, it just develops. If you look at a lot of the people that have worked for me, I mean, Bramer in particular, you look how fast that kid ascended, because he was, and it wasn't us, it was just he had that work ethic to start with.
Right.
I mean, his whole family does. Every one of the Bramers are just like that. The most nice people, super smart, handsome. I hate them all. And all their wives are beautiful. But yeah, tough life to be a Bramer. But all the most genuine human beings I've ever met in my life. That was the hardest thing about if Steve Adams, my buddy, Vive, he hadn't called me and said, you got to hire. I said, I'm not hiring Bramer's kid. It'd be hard. I said, how hard do you think it's going to be for me to fire this kid if he's a dipshit? And Vi calls me and he says, dude, I'm just going to tell you one more time. He's just like every Bramer on earth. And I go, all right. And so I did it. But I wasn't going to hire him just because, I mean, one of my best buddies growing up, married one of the, she's part of it. And I'm thinking, all the wives will hate me if I fire him, because and I'll never be able to go home without them saying, you're such an ass. I said, well, you've known that all my life. But so, yeah. But it is a unique situation, and everybody gets, the big thing about here is everybody gets treated the same. Like shit, mostly. But nobody's got they all get treated the same. And and the most unique thing, I think I already hit it, but I'm just a long way around the barn on this thing, but is that the entire staff monitors the entire staff.
Yeah.
There's not a bunch of little tattletale bullshit going on. There's none of that bullshit. It's a call out right in front of everybody. I mean, Jake's great at that.
Yeah, Jake's
Jake's
really good at it.
like, excuse me. And because they truly believe it's truly team play. It's truly team play. And
rising tide lifts all ships kind of deal.
yeah, it truly is. You know, in my seminar life, I've had 3 Fortune 500 guys come to me and ask me to teach their people how to do seminars. They're not the president. Well, one of them was. And And I'm like, well, what are you dealing? You know, mutual fund. This is, you really think that's as fun as fishing? I don't know how am I going to do it? I don't think I can get up and do that hour and a half seminar screaming and hollering about that either. Right. But I had one guy come in here who owns a giant corporation, and I don't remember what it is. He probably is watching. And he asked me if I could do something for their managers because he was so impressed with our staff. And I immediately kicked the can down the road. He says, well, that's Johnny. Johnny does all of that. And he says, they're all afraid of him. He goes, no, they're not afraid of him. They admire him. Because he is guiding for this. So they admire him. I says, that's because he's a good role model and he holds you the same that everybody else does. Yep. I said, I don't know how you teach that, you know, because he probably was selling something like, you know, I don't know. But I said, I don't think I think it's a matter of
life insurance.
Yeah, well, I mean, when your boss says, you know, your job is that you have to fish 5 nights a week or whatever it is, well, throw me in that Braeden.
Yeah, it's a pretty fun job. I like that one.
It was cool. Now you're on your own and Mr. Camera Guy. You don't have to anymore.
Now I spend less time outside, still a little bit.
That was a long answer, wasn't it?
Yep. All right, let's do another segment, another edition of What is Kelly Pissed Off About Today?
I'm pissed off that we didn't show that one segment that we filmed about when you asked me when I was putting hackle up over there. What are the three? What have you learned after 45 years of guiding? And then I'm not a real big fan of swearing on this thing, even though I do a lot. I try to tone it down. But we did that segment, and now in politics, in particular, one side is dropping F-bombs all over the floor. That's constantly going out, right? We've got a new low. And I'm sorry, I'm pissed that we didn't release that video a year ago. Because it is a metaphorical, it is what I learned from 45 years of guiding heads of state and senators and governors and Fortune 500 presidents and CEOs and name it, any one of those people, and it's just the constants, the three constants of the world. If we'd have released it then, it would have been more appropriate today.
Do you want to let the people know what it is? I'll bleep it out.
Yeah, I don't mind. I mean, I've said it for 30 years. Everybody says F***, everybody denies it, and everybody's looking for strange. And it's a metaphorical. It may not be the word, but everybody has something that they do on the river and then pretend they don't, and everybody's looking for strange of some sort. Everybody says F***, everybody denies it, and everybody's looking for strange. And now you look at the house and you say, oh, I know what he means now. Look at these pieces of shit that are supposed to be held at another standard when our world leaders are walking in sweatsuits and dropping the F-bomb on every other line. It's like, okay, so there really is no separation.
There's no decorum.
No. So I'm pissed that we didn't release it a year ago, though, because then it could have been gone viral. And they would say, this is for the Senate. This is for the current Senate.
Maybe we'll
can we please watch this? Lie more.
Lie, yes.
You know, don't say that, because you said you were above it.
Yeah.
But it was different to watch people, these just so above it all, become human. And then watch them put on their suit to go back. It's like, you want that picture of this hooker? No, never mind. Yes, different world. That's what I'm pissed about. I saw it. It's on my cell phone.
Yeah.
You sent it to me. And I saw it about 4 or 5 days ago, watching yet another one of those dipshits calling somebody, I mean, just dropping trash. I mean, they're supposedly our leaders.
All right, well, thanks for sharing that.
I hope that didn't offend any of you that I guided. You know who you are.
Yeah, Yeah.
Do not have your wife call me.
Everybody's kind of a greaseball.
Is he one of them? No, not him. He was perfect.
No, not him.
No,
He's great.
no.
Yeah.
We just took a wrong turn. That's why we were home 6 hours late.
Yeah, a round of golf does take 9 hours.
Yes.
Yeah, looking at our breakdown of our audience, I think it's probably pretty unlikely that their wives are watching.
Oh, we get lots of wives come in and tell me that their husbands watch it, and I apologize for having to listen.
Yeah.
I says, I'm sorry. Oh, my God, you're on our TV all the time. Yeah, I'm like, sorry.
Oops.
I hate my voice, too.
My bad. All right, let's do band of the week. What you got?
Did I do Joe Cocker already? I was listening to Joe Cocker yesterday.
Let's pretend no.
No?
I got to start keeping. Maybe you did.
I might have.
I'm going to start keeping a list.
But, and somebody wrote in Blackfoot, and I thought I did that one too. Because Train Train is in the top 5 rock and roll songs of all time in history.
So, so far you did Nugent,
Well, of course.
Stevie Ray Vaughan.
We just did that.
Yeah. And then now Joe Cocker. I know I did.
Yeah, we had Marshall Tucker in there.
Yeah, there was a Marshall Tucker.
We've had other ones. But I just not sure I did Joe Cocker.
Let's see.
But I was listening to Joe last night. He's so good.
All right, so let's say Joe Cocker's your one this week.
Well, we could put in Charlie Daniels Band, and I really liked him too.
Save that one for next week.
No, I'll have a rock band for next week.
Okay. And I did Dire Straits, Legion of Mary, Leonard Skinnard.
Thought that was some kid that did that one.
No, I did that one. I showed the kid Leonard Skinnard, and he dug
Oh, that's right.
Nicholas, I don't know if you're still watching. I know you watched one. Not a fish guy, but a good guy. I will go with Sturgill Simpson because I'm going to see him tonight.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
He's all giddy. He's got to get out of here because winter storm. He wants to get going. We gotta go. I gotta
make sure I can drink like
I like
4
Sturgill.
to 6 Coors Lights before walking in the door. I think that's the number I'm settling on.
Nice. So you don't remember it. I liked Sturgill when he first came out, and then I didn't dig it for a while. And now he's coming back to where he started. But that's not rock and roll.
No.
We're talking rock and roll.
No,
but I guess you can throw it in there. Then we got to do the wall thing.
Yep.
Is it getting boring?
I think people are liking it. At least the guys that came in today.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we filmed the first podcast. It took like 6 hours because people kept coming into the shop. Kind of a misfire on our part, thinking we'd be able to do that. Thanks everybody for coming by. Enjoyed.
We got a question. Somebody wrote in and asked who did I think it was this fish that I used in the video. Who did the mount? I did that. I did all of them. But this is no, that one is too.
Well, somebody asked if there was a walleye on the wall too.
Yeah.
There is.
That might be a bad. If that's the case and he's seeing one, that's not good for me. That thing's so dusty.
So you did not catch this fish.
No, John Clusing caught that. We were so hungover. But that was at Steelhead Camp.
Do you remember the numbers on that fish?
No. Like
big?
13 pounds something. It's not that big. It's only like 27 inches long.
Yeah, it's a small one.
But that one up there, this brown, God dang, these things are dusty. This one's real skin. This is fake. This is real, and that's fake. I carved those two when I first started doing that brook trout. I used to do a lot of Menippe's brook trout. Oh, is that thing faded? It needs a paint job. But they wanted to go to no kill, and so I carved that. That was my first carving. And was going to do those for them because to do a repo, if you don't know, you have to kill the fish and then do a cast of it. And then obviously you have to have a male, female, and then you have to have at least 2 positions or 3, like a C or an S or head left, head right. And so to do 120, that's Dave Ellis, one of Dave Ellis's fish, but I mean, I'd use his as a template. But to do that, you have to have, 6 box sets to do one fish if you're going to be in it. And it was before people were really, really getting into the reproductions, and it was a pain in the ass to do them. So I just started carving them and started doing those instead. And then that little rainbow, the really dirty little rainbow. Look at this thing, it's filthy. But he is, somebody stiffed me on that one. And then so just didn't pick it up, so I threw it up there. So, yeah, that's what somebody just called in on that. I did that one for the Nationals way back when, I don't know. Way back when. So that's the story on the fish.
All right, let's do.
And the one above the brown trout we talked about before is a mummified whitefish that I found. The people who lived here before I did must have had some enemies because the only way I can figure is somebody threw that thing in there. Yeah. But they couldn't get up there. It's a long ways. They might have hucked it up. Somebody said it was
in a chimney?
It was in the fluid. It was in the box.
Oh, shit.
It had to drop down the chimney.
Yeah.
And there's no talon marks, so it's not like a bird had it because it's completely whole. And there's no marks in it. Somebody said, well, maybe a coon took it up there. And why did he go up to the chimney and sit there and drop his lunch? He went in after it. Right? I had two of them. If that
yeah.
But I think somebody hucked it up there. And I don't know. It was, that's the fish, the story of the fish. We're looking for more stuff too, by the way.
Yeah, if you got stuff you want to see behind here you think would be cool, send it in. Our address is online somewhere. Let's do Kelly Under Fire. So we asked people for questions a while back on our Instagram.
This thing's not so good if people aren't really watching.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of bad.
Yeah,
I don't know about this thing.
Whatever.
Maybe we shouldn't do it all the time. If you're driving down the road and you're wondering what the hell I'm talking about, there are mounted fish behind us.
I think it's important to use the power of imagination every once in a while.
Ruby.
Kind of like reading a book.
A lot of jokes I just had for you there. Go for this rapid fire thing.
All right, rapid fire. When you were exploring the Boardman River in Michigan with a mask, and historical rumor has it you were in a Speedo. Is that true?
Never.
This guy's got a picture he's selling in.
Huh?
No, I'm just playing. That was LV McCoy.
I'm not European. I do have a guy who stays, a Roman Mauser guy, invented the beadhead and the conehead and had the first skulls also. Has a beautiful wife. And the Europeans are real fond of fishing in Speedos, and Roman fishes this river. He's a very well-built, older guy. He looks like he was somebody in the day. Doesn't matter. You're still in your 70 and you're on a Speedo out in the front of this lodge. And it was different, but no, I actually, and I didn't really dive the Boardman that much. I did the Manistee, the Jordan, I did the Big Manistee, which is 233 miles long. I did a lot of the Manistee. I did a lot of the Asabo. I did my very first river dive for when the whole streamer thing started was on the Boardman from Garfield down to the pump house. Did that, was my very first one, but never in a Speedo.
All right, well, that was exactly a minute.
There you go.
Didn't set a timer, but it felt about right. J.R. Harris 3 says, what's the greatest fly in the world and why?
Oh, without genre? I mean, Gray Ghost, original tie.
Soul.
Fishy. I would have to, I mean, we can go per genre. I mean, for Steelhead, Lady Caroline, Dry Fly, you'd pretty much be foolish not to put the Adams in there because everything's an offshoot of it in some respect. If I had to have my own personal, it would be probably the Robert's Yellow Drake. I could do it in different colors and make it probably fishy as an Adams. I don't know, pretty hard to beat an Adams. Nymph-wise, for me, it's a hair's there. Period, end of discussion. And streamer-wise, today's standard, I'm sure the Dungeon would come in there because it's been morphed into so many things, but I would still say Joe Brooks Blonde. Bucktail. I would fish it. I think you could fish that bucktail in any situation. No, you can fish it for saltwater, particularly the comet version of it. But I think you could fish the bucktail. I have caught muskies on a 4-inch white stack blonde. So they eat minnows, and it's just a great minnow. When I'm driving home, I'll think of something different, but there you go.
Perfect. All right. Well, I think that's a great place to end this podcast, episode 23. Like, subscribe, follow, tell your friends, and buy something. Slidein.com.
We appreciate it. I hope you're enjoying them.